A Giants podcast for Giants fans
by Giants fans.
It's Shaun Morash.
On the sideline, into the end zone. Touchdown, Giants!
From the offseason to the wins and the losses, it's time to take one Giant step.
All right, welcome into One Giant Step, or maybe today it's One Giant Mess. The Century Red Wedding is in the books, and the Giants have lost 28-6 to the Minnesota Vikings in what can only be described as embarrassing, horrendous. How many more words can you go through? Bryce Gelman, my co-host here, at Bryce Gelman on Twitter, at Shaun Morash on Twitter. Bryce, before we kind of dissect what went wrong, whatever went wrong, just an overarching. We both sat here, dropped our preview pod Friday morning, and predicted Giant victories. Didn't mean we predicted a great Giant season. Didn't mean we thought that this was going to be some storybook surprise year. I think we both kind of thought middle of the road, but understand the negatives to the team. The idea that this team came out on this day, where I had the privilege of, for the first time in my life, getting to speak with the owner of the New York Giants, President and CEO John Mara, Mr. Mara, on Friday on Evan and Tiki, one of the cool career moments I had. The biggest takeaway I had from speaking to him was how much today, and yes, we're taping this Sunday evening after this game, how much today meant to him. To have all of these Giants legends in the buildings and their families. He had a big cocktail hour thing Friday I was a part of, okay? And then he brought them all back on Sunday. And that commissioner's club and the owner's box, he was there to proudly show New York Giants football to these past legends and their families. Make no mistake about this. The Giants and John Mara, who obviously have a tight relationship here with the league, wanted a week one game this year to kick off their 100th season to be played at 1 o'clock because that's the time the season ticket holders love the most. And they wanted it versus a team that they could foresee themselves not getting trounced by. Okay? You can't ever predict wins and losses, but there's a reason they didn't play the Dallas Cowboys this week or the Philadelphia Eagles this week. And the league said, all right, how about the Vikings? Okay, sure, yeah, we'll take the Vikings. And yet, what the Giants did, to me, was the most embarrassing loss that they've had since they brought out the Super Bowl 46 team for their big 10-year anniversary, and the Rams kicked their ass all over the field. Last year, 40-0 versus the Cowboys. Sucked, Bryce. It was horrible. It was gut-punching. We had high hopes. Had they closed the gap with the Cowboys? Obviously, they didn't. But this was worse because at least you could stomach a loss to the Cowboys like that, as bad as it was, because they were the Cowboys and you just knew we always lose to them. This was Sam freaking Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings and a whole offseason that was predicated on pushing the ball down the field. And the Giants muster 6 points, 2 horrendous picks, 3rd and 16 penalty by Kayvon Thibodeau. Brian Dable giving up on a punt. We'll break it all down right now. Download and subscribe to One Giant Step everywhere podcasts are available. But Bryce, today was the epitome of suctitude, and the Giants gave that to their fans. How are you?
I'm doing extremely, extremely well, Shaun. And you could tell by the seriousness of my voice that is absolute garbage. This is not expected. I think both of us were on the same page when it came to the Giants winning. You thought they were going to put 30 points. I didn't agree with that. I thought they'd win the game. I thought they'd actually put up a respectable performance, but they clearly did not. They went out there and put up an absolute stinker, Shaun. I wouldn't go as far to say as it was more dejecting than last year, considering the higher expectations, and you don't even muster a single point. You get blown out.
It was bad. How about the fact that we're even in a position that we're comparing opening day ass kickings on which one was worse? How about that?
It's a miserable existence right now as a Giants fan. And we both sat here a couple of weeks ago. We put out a clip. It did extremely well on your Twitter, where we were not going to lose or you know what, based off how Daniel Jones was going to play on a week-by-week basis.
Yeah, because we know it's over anyway.
It's inevitable, though, that we have to sit here and digest it. We need to discuss it between the two of us because at this point, Shaun, it's very hard to just sit here and say everything is fine. It's like that meme, the dog in the burning building. Everything is fine. Everything is not fine. We need to discuss it. But eventually, it's going to get extremely repetitive because nothing is going to change. We know that this is going to be the case the entire year. We thought it would be slightly better against the team in which a lot of people expected the Giants to beat, the freaking Vikings. And they get blown out by the Vikings.
That's
It's
the thing,
just
man.
Sucks.
Bryce, you're right. And we expected them to beat him. But the truth is, I'm old enough now at 37 years old, and you'll get there, Bryce. And that's not even old, okay? We're going to have older listeners, younger listeners, right? Where I think that I reasonably understand the ins and outs of a week-by-week league that is the NFL and a week-by-week team that is the New York Giants in great seasons, bad seasons, middle-of-the-road seasons, okay? So I get how crazy overreacting can be. But, man, it is hard for me to really have hope for this season in any positive light if they look like that versus this team. And honestly, man, we want to do the Daniel Jones conversation. We could do it. I know that I have leaned more positive than others to my own faults or whatever, but it's also because I've seen good from Daniel Jones while I've seen a lot of bad. And I could also pinpoint and point to really horrendous situations he's been put in. Today was not that.
Mm-hmm.
And today was where Daniel Jones officially lost me. Now, granted, you know this.
Yep.
I wanted to move on at quarterback, and I wanted one of these quarterbacks in this past draft, okay? And I obviously my entire season focus is on who they are getting at quarterback for this upcoming draft.
Yeah.
But he lost me in any belief that he can even be middle of the road anymore. He was middle of the road 2 years ago. I think that whatever has happened to him, clock timing-wise, that was already a problem, got so much worse last year, and I didn't see any sign of that recovering today. The idea that you could practice all year long and not take any shots down the field, one pass on Sunday versus the Vikings of 20 yards or more down the field, when the entire identity of the team is built around decent tackle play now. And I know they gave up 5 sacks. That was not a horrendous offensive line effort. I've seen some bad ones. That was a functional offensive line out there, Bryce. That's unacceptable. Scoring 6 points versus Viking defense is unacceptable today. And honestly, as this goes on here with Daniel Jones, I went from thinking, it's December where you pull the plug. Man, they go out and lose next week to Washington. I wouldn't be so quick to go throw him out there versus Cleveland, because then you really do have to weigh the injury guarantee, and he may not be giving the team the best chance. Exactly. I can't believe I'm there saying this, and maybe I'll have a cooler head, and maybe next week, as we're taping this week from now, my pom-poms will be out, and he's throwing for 3 touchdowns because he beat Washington again. All of that's on the table because I'm a fan and it's irrational. But this was a disgrace, and Daniel Jones really has lost me in any sort of defense. My fun out of this football season has been sucked out of it. And I will always watch every minute. I will always watch every snap, as will you being fans. And I'm so thankful for all of our listeners and viewers here on One Giant Step. But I got to tell you, this is the first time as a Giant fan, I hate that this is my livelihood and my job is talking about this team constantly, because it must be so easy for the guy who works in the U.S. Postal Service to go deliver mail tomorrow and not be doing what we're doing today. Because this sucks. It is sucking the life out of me right now talking about this team.
There are such highs and such lows when it comes to being a fan of any sports team. There is nothing worse than getting all excited to watch your football team. And there isn't really an offseason anymore. There's constant excitement with the draft, the free agency, whatever. But being excited over a 6 to 7 month span, drafting a rookie like Malik Neighbors, who gives us all this promise, building a really solid foundation on the defensive and offensive sides of the ball with the line, only for the first game to come and to lose in that fashion. Shaun, I'm in agreement with you. The excuses for Daniel Jones ran out today. That is it.
How long is he going to hold on to the ball, Bryce? Held on to the ball all day long and didn't see anybody down the field.
It's unfathomable. And we're sitting here discussing something that I think we expected deep down. Neither of us thought that Daniel Jones was going to go on this resurgent run this year. He was going to become a top quarterback in the NFL. That was never a possibility.
I didn't even think the run game was that big a disgrace either for, the kind of tempo, the kind of style of the game was going to play. So I don't know whether to blame also, though, some of the play calling, whether that's a Dable thing, whether that was just a lack of trust, the 12 personnel they were doing. Whatever the Giants' identity or strength was supposed to be, which was attacking the ball down the field, was the complete opposite of what Daniel Jones, and then I guess to a lesser extent, Brian Dable did with sub-package-wise.
Shaun, one throw over 20 yards. One throw.
Yeah.
Oh, one throw, not one completion. One throw over 20 yards. What do we talk about all summer long? Through Hard Knocks, through training camp, through the preseason, they are going to take the deep shot. They took one. And it doesn't even count as a deep shot. Was it 40, 50 yards down the field? It's a joke. I don't want to.
And Bryce, when they take that deep shot, when they take that deep shot and they connect, what happened after that? 2 penalties in a row completely set them back. Ultimately leads to a punt. That was the other thing, too. As bad as Daniel Jones was, the illegal procedures, this penalty, that the offensive penalties they took today killed drives. Now, Jones didn't help him at all, but that was so awful. And if that's the way the team is going to play, answer me this, Bryce. I don't think it's crazy to say. These Giants starters did not earn the right to sit as much as they did in the preseason. They didn't earn the right to just play one half versus the Houston Texans. You need to be, if you're going to be a team like this that stinks, you need to play a little more in the preseason to let me know that, hey, we've tried all we can to not take these penalties and not have these kind of connections. That was horrendous, and that was terrible. So, and let me get to this too, Bryce. And we'll go to the defensive side because I have some bones to pick with them too. I did a show wrapping around on WFAN following Giants postgame. Brian Dable punting the football on 4th and 3 when you're down a couple scores midway through the third quarter, when you're nearing midfield. Where's the Brian Dable 2 years ago going for it, going for the 2 and everything? That was a wave the white flag moment for Brian Dable. And after the game, when he was asked about it, he said, well, I thought that was what put us in the best spot. Or what. He gave some kind of half-assed answer like that. Very short answer. If that was the best option for the Giants was punting on 4th and 3, you have told me all you think of the quarterback, all you think of the offense, because that was a give up. That showed the team that when we are down multiple scores midway through the third quarter, we cannot do what Michael Vick and the Eagles did to the Giants in the Miracle of the Meadowlands in 2010. We are incapable of any hope when you punt the football. I thought that was embarrassingly cowardly from Brian Dable and smugly arrogant after the game to answer a question like that. I don't know how you felt about that.
What do you expect of him? Like you see the difference in decision making.
The hell with it.
You go but you don't because he doesn't trust the quarterback. What do you expect him to do with a guy he doesn't trust to throw out there with a play call that he clearly didn't believe in? Because if he did believe in a play call, he believed in the performance of the quarterback. He would have went for it. He wouldn't have punted it, but he punted it. 2022. He was as, and you mentioned 2022. You mentioned his aggressiveness in the past. Guess who actually played pretty well in 2022? Daniel Jones. Guess who they had in the backfield in 2022? Saquon Barkley.
Guess what?
I don't even want to get into that because I was miserable on Friday night.
Bryce, you know what?
I don't want to get into it. I just want to say that. I just want to say
guess what? Guess what they also didn't have? The wide receivers they have on this team now. Okay, Wan'Dale Robinson was lost for the year. Can we get Hyatt on the field a little more today, please? Too, if the defense is keen in on that, at least he can run past somebody.
I had a feeling.
That's horrendous. I'm sorry. I'm not going to defend that. And now let me flip around to the defense real quick.
Yeah.
Oh, where do I begin? Because rattle this off one by one. Drew Phillips forces a fumble early in this game, makes another decent tackle. He looked the part at nickel, and yet he's basically barely playing. They suddenly move Cordell Flott back to nickel. I don't know what they're doing defensively there. On top of that, the idea that you invest the top 5 pick in Kayvon Thibodeau and that much money and everything in Brian Burns, and that is what that pairing gives you in game 1. Now, I'm not waving a white flag and telling you these guys are going to be like the ultimate bust pairing. I do like both players. That cannot happen. That was terrible today. And Kayvon Thibodeau, again, another guy I've defended a lot. I think he's shown way more good than bad. Has to develop more of a pass rush skill set for his only basically contributing factor in this game to be that hands to the face mask penalty on 3rd and 16, Bryce. They are off the field at a critical juncture that extends a drive that the Vikings end up scoring a touchdown in. That penalty to me was the death blow to the team, the death blow to the game, dare I say the death blow to the season by losing this game. Yeah. That penalty cannot happen. And, to a lesser extent, I'll let you comment on that in a second too. Brian Burns, I know Darius was a good player. Anything? Can I get anything? Where's the spider web shooting today? That they got nothing from those two, and that penalty was the cake.
Yeah, one pressure. I don't know the number on Saquon or on. I cannot. This is where my mind is. I don't know the number on Kayvon, but Brian Burns having one pressure. No. One pressure, not even a quarterback knock. It doesn't even get to the quarterback. One pressure. He hurries one throw. Or one, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's not good enough. What do we say repeatedly? How they win this game is they get to the quarterback. On the first drive, they got to the quarterback. And that was great. It was all like, all right, look, this is the season. This is the identity of this team. And where did they go from there? Where do they go from there? Build on something. You get to the quarterback in the first drive, and then you barely do anything the rest of the game.
It's
not good enough. It's not good enough.
I thought they set the tone. I thought the defense was going to swarm after that first drive. And then that gets me to the next guy. The guy that actually did show up and was by far the best player on the field today was Dexter Lawrence, who I actually had the pleasure of meeting on Friday night, Bryce, and very nice man, gentle giant, the whole thing. I got a major issue with Dexter Lawrence, though. After the game, you're the face of the franchise now. You're the leader. When you're asked about fans booing, he tried to say the right thing where he said, like, I understand their frustration, but he said 3 words you cannot say to a fan base. I don't respect that. I guess that's 4 words. I don't respect that. You don't respect that the fans are booing when the fans have paid how much money in tickets, parking, how much time in tailgating, going through. Their entire Sunday's wrapped around this. And do you one more, Dex, have had months of lead up and build up to this moment. And they, outside of Carolina Panther fans, got the absolute worst effort that any NFL fan base saw on a day where they were honoring legends. I'm sorry. Dexter Lawrence, you need to have a better answer than I don't respect that, because that's embarrassing. You know what we don't respect? Year after year, terrible football. And guess what? I could drop dead tomorrow and cherish the runs to the Super Bowl the 2000, 2007, and 2011 Giants gave me in my life. And I understand that I've already gotten more than most NFL fans were. But there are people like Bryce Gelman who were really freaking young the last time the Giants participated in a Super Bowl. And people like my kids who, God willing, will see them play in a Super Bowl, who, I get it, they're really, really young, but even, take somebody who's 10, 12 years old. They don't know good Giant football outside of the team 2 years ago, okay? We're talking about now a next generation of fans who are going to games with their freaking parents all these years, and they have every right to boo, Dex. The idea that you don't respect that, when is enough? Everybody who has a brain knows Sam Darnold is a crap quarterback in the NFL. And he had no problem scoring 28 points against your defense today, while our quarterback could muster 6. That's embarrassing, Bryce. I had a major issue with Dexter Lawrence after the game.
Yeah, I just saw this. I saw this about an hour ago before we recorded here. And we're recording this at 7:45 on Sunday night. And I'm disappointed. I definitely am. Coming from a guy that is your captain, who should be your captain, one of your leaders in your locker room, to go out and say something like that. As you mentioned, he tried to say the right thing, and the quote wasn't, that eye-popping, but he did say that. I don't respect that. Yeah. You don't respect fans spending well over $250, $300 to go to this game, most of them. You don't respect the fans devoting their entire Sunday to watching your pathetic half-ass performance. You don't respect the fans who have constantly showed up for this team over the last 6-7 years. 2022, you can't include that because they made the playoffs. Great, won a playoff game. But going back to 2016, when this team was last competitive, realistically. And it's just like, it's such a punch in the gut. It really is. It's disrespectful coming from him. First we had to deal with Evan Neal's comments last year. Evan Neal was in no position to make any comments about the fans with how poor his play had been at the time and still is now. Dexter Lawrence is the best defensive tackle in the league. You should, have better things to say about that, because it's going to happen. You're going to struggle. Your team is going to struggle. Most players in the league at some point in their career are on a team that struggles. Most of them aren't also on a team like this, who is this bad for as long as they've been. So,
and Dex has been a part of the bad. I mean, he's a good player, but he's seen all the bad. He should understand and he says he understands. The
emotion is heightened. There's a lot of heightened emotion right now. There were a lot of angry fans leaving MetLife Stadium today, and then just to come home and open up their phones and then see that quote.
That's terrible. It's terrible. Yeah. And it would drive me nuts as a fan. Now, there's a couple things I want to clean up here before we get out of here. First of all, you can tweet at us at Shaun Morash, at Bryce Gelman. Bryce, we did get this tweet from Mad Run Bad Run. When is the last time the Giants ran up the score on an opponent and blew them out? It feels like it's been a decade. The offense has been fundamentally broken since Coughlin and Gilbride. And I thought this was a good question. I'm not looking this up, nor should you. The fact that I can't remember a blowout in the post-Eli Manning world we're living in says something. Now, in 2022, when they won 9 games, I'm trying to think of the 9 wins. Bears was really close because Jones got hurt. The Packer game in London was close. The Raven game was close. I even think Carolina was close early. I don't even think there was a game in there in that year 2 years ago. So I really couldn't even tell you. And look what the Cowboys did, playing a good team on the road versus Cleveland on Sunday. Blew them out right off the bat. That fan base could probably think of, and they have had a lot of playoff mishaps, but that fan base could think of that with a blink. We've got to that point now where you can't remember. Bryce, that's terrible for this Giants team.
It's been a while. It's on the offense. It's on the offense not being explosive enough to put up enough points, hang up enough points on the opponent. It has nothing to do with the defense. It says nothing about the defense. The defense, I mean, listen, the fact that Darnold started off 14 of 14 or 15 of 15, whatever it is, that's not okay. That should not be acceptable. But the defense is not the reason why the Giants lost this game. And if the Giants offensively were more competent, they can't blow them out.
No.
So it's just like,
and the Vikings still only scored 28. The Giants were capable and had weapons on this team to win a game 31-28 today. It doesn't absolve the defense from it, but the offense was still 100% the major issue and has been the major issue. Which brings me to this, Bryce, man. I do want to do two things here. I think, and I think this is serious, and I think this is only good for the audience, too. If you're listening and downloading and subscribing to One Giant Step, I've done a lot of bad seasons now of Giant talk and football. I know how it is, and I know how the podcast listener is, right? You get to a certain point in a year in lost years where you just start to tune out because you watch the games. You don't want to hear any more about the disgrace it is, and I get that. So, and I hate that I'm even warning you this in week one. I think that each week, Bryce, as we recap, we're not going to do it today, but maybe going forward, we literally kind of give the info and the updates on where the quarterbacks are staggered ahead of this draft. I think we're already there because I think we all have to be in agreement. That's the Giants' first-round move here. I think Joe Schoen has sent that message. So you guys should be as informed as possible, and I want to try to inform you. That's another nugget. On top of recapping Giant games, we'll kind of give you where these quarterbacks stand so you have enough to digest and get into it and do that. Also, that being said, I really don't know where the Giants go from here this year, okay? Washington next week. Also, Cleveland in week 3, who looked like a mess today. Deshaun Watson's an absolute mess. This is where I will spin you to a glimmer of positivity. The next 2 games might be winnable. Here's the issue. No, Bryce, I'm not picking them to win either game. I don't want to tell you that right now.
I know.
All right? Where, teams lost badly today. Like the Bengals lost to the Patriots. Week 1 can be really weird, okay? So let's play this fictitious world where the Giants were just weird, bad week, okay? I don't know how long you let Jones keep playing if these losses like this week mount in the quarterback thing. So that's what we're trying to foreshadow. If they're 0-2, is Daniel Jones even starting week 3 in Cleveland? Depending on how it looked, I think I'd already be okay with pulling the plug. I'm just curious because you also have that injury guarantee, Bryce, on how long they will let this thing run. Remember, this is Dable calling the plays and if Jones is not pulling the trigger, I don't know how you could keep giving the fans that. So if it looks like this next week versus Washington and they lose a game 17-6, they still don't score a touchdown. Is Daniel Jones a starter week 3? I kind of thought this was going to be a December thing. I'm already on, if this team doesn't score in the 20s next week, and it's very evident, I see a lot of what I saw today from Daniel Jones, I'm good with being done with him after next week. Where do you stand?
Tommy DeVito's on the sideline right now.
It's going to be locked first.
I was out. I know, just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in.
Yeah.
That's where Tommy DeVito's at. He's going to get run this year. I know for a fact, based off what we saw from Drew Lock, and I forgot which preseason game he played. Was it I don't even know.
It was the Lions when he got hurt.
It was the first preseason game where he looked terrible.
Yeah.
Tommy DeVito is going to get run this year. I just know it. I know that the team is going to try to give the fans at least something to be excited about, and that is.
And then he's going to win games, and they're going to be out of the Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck, and George Sanders sweepstakes.
And he's going to be doing appearances at Bubba Coos Burritos around New Jersey. So congratulations to him, and we have to sit with the terrible quarterback in the middle of the draft.
I want him to be the backup quarterback on this team long term.
If you help us lose, go ahead. Right. Throw for 350 yards a game. I don't care. As long as the Giants lose. I was saying, I was singing that all year long last year of how much is this going to screw the team? And you don't know who they would have gotten at the draft, at the top of the draft. I mean, if they lost out, they would have gotten Caleb. So there's that. If they didn't win those 3 games, they would have had Caleb. So,
and I want to say this.
Yeah.
We're doing quarterback watch. Caleb did not look good today. The Bears scored all because of defense and special teams. Jaden Daniels did not look good today. We didn't even see Drake May. The Patriots won without him. So not that we should expect that with starters in week 1. And by the way, this is why this sucks, because next year when the Giants have a rookie, you probably expect it to look like the Bears did today. So you're right. Where is DeVito? But if and when the Giants take that, this is where I'm saying I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's like we're 24 weeks away from being really pumped up for a week 1, 24 months away, which is crazy. Crazy. Think about that. Right. Is that morbid or what?
Right. You're right. Objectively, you're right. I mean, after what we saw today,
were you really
thinking
the
future?
You know what I mean?
What's the future? But at least
if you hit on the guy.
Exactly. You have to hit on the guy first, and there could be a completely different front office come 24 months, 20, even 12 months. You know, like we don't know. We have no idea. Another thing we're going to have to discuss repeatedly throughout these next few weeks, because again, we're not going to be talking about whether or not the Giants have a chance to win against a lot of these teams, whenever they play the Cowboys, the Eagles, whatever, is where we stand on the job security of Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. I am of the personal belief, and I'm just going to say this right now and get this off my chest, and then we'll go from there in the next coming weeks. They would have to lose every single game this season for them to be fired. It's not their fault. They didn't draft Daniel Jones. Every GM, every coach should be given a chance to draft their own quarterback. You could say, well, they stuck with Daniel Jones. That's on them. What other choice do they have? They had no other choice. And this the whole Saquon argument, and they should have paid Saquon and shouldn't have paid Daniel Jones. They had no choice. You pay the quarterback. You do not pay running backs in this league, especially when your team isn't that good.
Think about it. By doing such an outstanding job like Daboll did in year 1 and making the playoffs, it may have ultimately set the franchise back, because then you pay Daniel Jones, you're behind on drafting the quarterback and everything. So to me, yes, if they lose every game and players quit, like every record looks different depending on what's going on in that locker room, I would understand having to get rid of them. I really just wish that ownerships, and this isn't just the Giant thing, this is league-wide, in the NFL, because there's no lottery, kind of embrace when the team stinks and see the light at the end of the tunnel. Because I really want to see Brian Daboll work with a rookie quarterback. And if this team goes and wins 2 or 3 games and it's that kind of bad year, and they're picking in the top 3 and they're getting one of these quarterbacks, you know, I guess I'd be pumped up for a Mike Vrabel if he got hired. But if you're just going to hire something else to start the new thing, just give this team a chance and this regime a chance to draft a rookie quarterback, and understand that to get to that position, they may have to lose a lot of games, and don't punish them for losing said games, because losing all those games sets you up for the better future. I mean, to me, that's where ownership and stuff like that, again, league-wide will look at, they lost a lot of games. It must be their problem. Well, they lost a lot of games. This also could be setting them up for their best chance at success. Yeah. And it's such we don't embrace that futuristic look at it.
Just so pathetic that this is where we are at 8 p.m. on the first football Sunday of the year.
Sucks.
I don't think either of us, I don't think any Giant fan out there expected it to be this bad today. I said to my friends, I was like, this is worse than worst case scenario. It was. Yeah. No one was expecting the Giants to get absolutely trounced.
I was prepared for a mind-numbing, pissed-off loss. I wasn't prepared for that. I wasn't prepared to look like they don't belong in the league.
And the pick six, and the second pick. The second pick, honestly, might be more egregious than the first. I get it. We were just a great play.
We were just so done by the second pick anyway. It was like, whatever. The Van Ginkel pick was like, are you kidding me? Because if they drive down the field there, maybe you believe in a little.
Yeah.
Bryce, the whole thing sucked. The whole thing absolutely sucked. But we're going to pick up our ass. We're going to put on our boots. And we're going to preview a game next week versus the Washington Commanders. And I guarantee by the time you listen to my red piggish face and Bryce's beautiful young face, okay? That was weird that I said that, but you know what I mean. Old Uncle Shawnee's going to harbor some positivity and talk himself into something. And that's what you have to look forward to in this roller coaster of emotions called One Giant Step. We should download and subscribe to it everywhere podcasts are available, free in the Audacy app, and check it out on YouTube as well on the WFAN page. At Shaun Morash on Twitter, at Bryce Gelman on Twitter. Questions, thoughts, anything you want us to bring up on the podcast, we will handle it there. I'm going to watch me some Carrie Underwood. I'm going to watch me some Sunday Night Football. I'm going to slam Big Ziti in my face, because that's what you do on a Sunday night when the G-men lose. For Bryce Gelman, I'm Shaun Morash. Thanks for taking One Giant Step with us.